Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another edition of the Wild's Warcry Retro. As you probably expect, it's Ulysses and I here.
Hey, how you guys doing?
And we're going to take a look at another pay-per-view from the past and let you know what we thought about it. This time around, we decided to go with something, something that kind of fit the summertime since we're coming to the end of summer. And we're going to go with the Great American Bash. Also, Ulysses last time mentioned Mordecai, and it just kind of worked out that we found another pay-per-view with Mordecai in it.
Oh, man. See? You are the bearer of bad luck. You just keep reminding me of stuff from wrestling I did not like.
That's okay. See, the part of the fun of wrestling is when it's good, it's really good. And when it's bad, you have a lot to laugh at.
Yes.
All right. So, this pay-per-view, for those of you who don't know, Great American Bash was originally a WCW creation. And I remember watching a lot of the WCW versions of this pay-per-view and thinking overall they weren't too bad.
Yeah, I've never seen any of them. Like, it's sad to say that my only experience with the Great American Bash were the WWE versions of them.
Yeah, and I definitely, I've only seen a few of those, but it looks like there was a little bit of a downgrade in quality. In 2004, which is the Great American Bash that we will be discussing today, is the one where WWE tried to bring it back, and they mentioned this several times in the show. So, first of all, our commentators for this particular program are Taz and Michael Cole.
Yes.
Who I didn't think did a horrible job. They were the SmackDown team for a long time, so I'm kind of used to them working together.
I like Taz. Taz is like my favorite. The things he says and how he says them are so ridiculous half the time that I love him.
Yeah. I also love, and maybe this is just me, but if you notice, like, a lot of times Taz messes up. He'll say things incorrectly or he'll correct himself, whatever. And that's kind of funny. But in this particular pay-per-view, it's also evident that a lot of times Taz ends up correcting Michael Cole. And I hate that, maybe, I know people are going to hate me for this. You can tell that Michael Cole has gotten better.
Yeah. He's gotten way better.
I think so. Yeah. All right, so we have an introduction for this where Tori Wilson comes out wearing a red, white, and blue top hat and bikini kind of ensemble to start the program off because, of course, WWE, so big supporters of the troops, which that's cool. I have nothing against that. However, this is actually important to a match later, and we'll get into that when the time comes. But I also want to talk about how throughout the program, the other divas all show up wearing red, white, and blue bikinis, essentially, and are in a hot tub, and that's where they chose to do most of the backstage interviews for this pay-per-view.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, I gotta say, that's not the worst idea WWE has ever had.
It just got bad once they hit that segment with Nunzio, and that was funny.
Dawn. Oh, that was great. Because it was Rene Dupree, who we'll get to in a moment. And, yeah, you if you don't watch this pay-per-view for anything else, you should watch it for that.
Yeah, watch it for that segment.
And just so you know, Ulysses and I, we're not pimping out their product here, but we do watch these on the WWE Network. So if you want to see what it is we're talking about and make sure this is as good or as bad as we're actually telling you it is, feel free to look it up on the WWE Network and take a look.
Yes.
All right, so the opening match, we have John Cena, the champ, is here as the U.S. Title holder. And he is facing Booker T, RVD, and Rene Dupree in a Fatal 4-Way for the title. And this is apparently because he pissed off Kurt Angle, who is, at this point, the general manager of SmackDown.
Yeah, it's like he put him in this match because Kurt Angle says that he is a proper American and John Cena is not American enough or something like that to hold such a prestigious title.
Right. And I'm going to say this. I've never been so happy to see John Cena be the first match in a pay-per-view. I think Cena annoys me less. I like Cena. I'm a Cena fan, but I think he annoys me less when he's in the opening match.
Yeah, I can see that, considering that, like, it's a better time for him just to do his 5 moves of doom and without people putting too much of an emphasis on it. But the one thing that was shocking is, like, it's been a long time watching WWE product that I forgot how it was when Cena was just a favorite all around with the fans.
Right.
It was weird to, like, see him come out from backstage and just have the crowd erupt in nothing but cheers. I forgot how much people liked him at one point.
Well, so if I remember correctly, this is around the time where he was no longer doing the heel rap gimmick. He had turned face, and he hadn't been face for too long. But like you said, the fans were still behind him. He really hadn't become Super Cena yet. You know, he was getting there, but so I will say his rap at the beginning was amusing. Anytime I can get a G.I. Bro reference in that, and he had like 1 or 2 other small things of that rap I was just cracking up at.
No, the G.I. Bro. Fantastic.
I mean, it was great. Booker T, you know, I think at the time was doing his thing with Goldust, actually. And then Rene Dupree. Rene Dupree is a really good wrestler. But I don't think they ever really knew what to do with him. And the little dance gimmick, like they have him doing the dance, and I don't know. I don't know what they were thinking.
See, when I was looking at the match and I saw the guy and Rene Dupree come out, I was like, I vaguely remember that. But it's sad because I remembered Fifi the dog probably more than I did Rene Dupree the wrestler.
That's interesting. Yeah. Yeah, the other thing is he used to be a part of a tag team, and that was when, I don't know, Dupree had a lot of potential, you know. But so RVD's the other guy in it, and RVD, you know, was great in 2004. I think he's still pretty good, but RVD was actually the first one to get eliminated, and I noticed something about Booker T.
Which was?
So Booker T was hanging out on the outside of the ring, you know, in the Fatal 4-Way, and pretty much everybody kind of realizes this toward the end and starts throwing him and other people in the ring. And I thought that was funny, right?
Yeah, it was pretty funny.
But it reminded me of some friends of mine and I playing the WWE games. And we have this one friend named Mark, and I'm going to call him out right now. So that's what he used to do in the game. There would be like an elimination chamber, and once everybody was out of the pods and everything, he would go hang out on the outside, like on the metal parts, because, you know, we were all busy fighting each other. And so finally one day we figured this out, that's how he was staying with his character. It wasn't even winning doing this. It's just he was trying to keep his character from getting too much damage. So we would all just pull him back in.
Fantastic.
So if you play WWE, any of their games, don't be cheap like Mark.
You hear that, Mark?
So what did you think of the match overall?
Overall, it was a pretty good, entertaining match to start off. It's kind of hilarious seeing the United States title being defended first on the Great American Bash. The storytelling was really funny to me. It was like seeing like how you said, it was RVD getting eliminated first, and then you have the 2 heels attacking like this champion, and then like this was pretty much the birth of Super Cena, where somehow it was 2 against 1, and then Cena pulls it out. And other than that, it was really fantastic. It was like Booker T is a good guy who knows what he's doing in the ring. So is RVD. You're probably a bigger fan than Rene Dupree than I am, but it was still entertaining enough to watch. And then John Cena is John Cena. So overall, it was a really entertaining match.
I actually like that Cena let RVD do the work for him. He let him do the 2 frog splashes and then came in and just rolled him up. And I was like, are you sure you're face Cena now? I can't tell.
See, for me, it was funny because I've never seen someone get pinned after they did the finisher.
Exactly. That's pretty funny. I've seen it before, but it's always amusing. I thought this was a pretty good match. Once it got to the end where it was just Booker T and Cena, they had some really good exchanges. And the end of the match was decent. I thought Cena could have snapped him up into the FU a little bit quicker. And I love that at this point they're still calling it the FU. I have nothing. I think Attitude Adjustment is a good name for a finisher, but it's the FU, damn it.
It is the FU. It's still funny to hear it be called the FU. I had completely forgotten that that's what it was called at one point.
Oh, yeah. And because his submission move was called the STFU.
Yes. Cena.
But, yeah, I think this was a really good opening match. It's not the best match on the pay-per-view. We're going to get to that in a minute. But I think it was a good opening match. Now, I think it doesn't compare to some other stuff later, and it definitely wasn't the most boring. And it was entertaining. It got the energy doing what they wanted it to do.
Yes.
Yeah. So then we go from a pretty decent match and something that got the energy up to pretty much bringing it down and not doing much with it at all. The next match was Luther Reigns versus Charlie Haas. And this is all set up because, for those of you who don't know, originally Shelton Benjamin and Charlie Haas were both on the original Team Angle. And that was some good stuff. They did a lot of really good stuff there. Charlie Haas is not a bad wrestler at all. No,
he was great. I loved watching him in Shelton Benjamin.
He is a good ring technician. He knows what he is doing. He has an amateur background. It's just a great all-around wrestler. However, Team Angle had kind of fallen apart, and so Angle had picked up Luther Reigns as part of the new team he was building. And so when Cena comes to the back, like we already said, Angle has some beef with Cena. Charlie Haas and I want to say it was Jackie. We're congratulating Cena on his victory, and Kurt Angle saw this and decided, nope, if you're going to associate with people like that, you need to get destroyed. And thus we have our next match.
Yeah, what is a Luther Reigns?
Okay, so I didn't know much about Luther Reigns until I would say about 2 years ago, and this is probably only the third match I've ever seen him fight. And I have to say, I'm still not much of a fan. However, at one point Reigns was considered to be a hot commodity. I know later after this they bring him and Jindrak together, whom we discussed Jindrak on the episode where we talked about
Halloween
2000 Halloween Havoc, right? And, both of those guys were supposed to be amazing. And Jindrak, I've seen really good matches from, but Luther Reigns so far, maybe, if you're a fan out there and you're listening to this and you know of a good Luther Reigns match, recommend it to me, because I want to see if that exists.
Yeah, he had a very strange look to him.
He looks, and this is going to lead into my next point, he looks like he not only was on steroids, but that like he was just like overdoing them.
Yeah. He looked off. It was really weird watching him wrestle.
So I want to tell you something. I want to tell you something kind of funny about this, and not funny, haha, but just you know how I like to look and see like wrestlers that we know aren't wrestling anymore. I like to see what they're doing now, right?
Yeah.
So I looked up some stuff on Luther Reigns, and he admitted to using steroids a lot. Not even necessarily in his time in WWE. He probably did, but he said it wasn't around that time. But after WWE, he went to go wrestle for a little while longer. And in, I believe it was 2010, he had a stroke.
Oh, wow.
And he blames the stroke on his steroid use. But he says that the stroke, and this is a direct quote, was a gift from God to tell him to stop wrestling. I don't know how that works. I'm not going to proclaim to understand much about the way God works, but I don't, whatever. But the point is, so he doesn't wrestle anymore. Looks like, from what I could tell, he was going into real estate or trying to. So good luck, Luther Reigns. Your match was not that great. And that's the thing. I can't even blame this on Charlie Haas, because I watched this match twice pretty much, because I kind of went back and was looking at some stuff, and Charlie Haas was never like the bad part of the match. It was just a poor matchup.
Yeah, Charlie Haas did his best to like portray what they were trying to show. Like Charlie Haas was the underdog in the match, Luther Reigns was the powerhouse, and Charlie Haas did his damnedest to try to sell that as much as he could. But It was more like how you said, it was like more Luther Reigns' fault why that match really didn't go as well.
Speaking of that, Charlie Haas really did sell Reigns' finisher. Like, he made it look like it hurt.
Yeah.
I'll give him that. Okay, so let's move on to a match that was actually enjoyable. Rey Mysterio, who was the Cruiserweight Champion at the time, versus Chavo Guerrero. So, this was a good match, in my opinion. I hope you feel the same way.
Oh, it was great. It was really good to watch.
The problem with this is that Rey Mysterio and Chavo Guerrero have had so many good matches that this one may not be... I don't know if this would make like their top 10 matches. And that's saying something. It's that good of a match, but it probably wouldn't be in their top 10 matches they've had. If you want to see some awesome Rey Mysterio Chavo Guerrero matches, go watch some of those 97, 98, 99. I can't exactly remember, but there was a point in time where Rey Mysterio and Chavo Guerrero were wrestling each other almost every week. On WCW.
Yeah,
so,
I'd imagine those matches would be a lot better considering that WCW wasn't handcuffing them.
Yeah. So this was a really good match. This match had some of the best mat wrestling we saw all night.
Yeah.
A lot of good reversals.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was like, I think there was a part where like Chavo reversed something Mysterio did into the gory bomb. That was good.
Yes,
that was really great.
Yeah, and at the end, he tried for the gory bomb a second time, and Ray turned it into a sunset flip, which I saw the move coming, and it was still cool. You know, I think overall they just really, Rey Mysterio is one of those guys. Like, he's been good, he's been great, but like there are just sometimes he pulls a move off like it looks so fluid. It looks like he is just liquid in that ring.
Yeah, and then one thing that's really undersold in this match is that there was some really good storytelling. Like, there was the thing about Mysterio's knee, and they were working that knee, and Mysterio was doing his damnedest to sell the fact that his knee was hurting. Right.
Yeah, and you could tell by the end of the match, like, your knee's not messed up, man.
Yeah.
You're fine. But yeah, I agree. It's kind of sad right now. I take it about the whole deal with Ray wanting to get out of his contract and all the stuff with AAA, and just apparently he's not on great terms right now with WWE.
Yeah, it really is sad because I am a lifelong Mysterio fan. I like them.
Right.
I've loved him since WCW. I was one of the biggest guys who marked out when he came in the first time in SmackDown. And I was one of those guys who was super happy when he got his title. But to see such a good wrestler just pretty much have their career, I don't know if he's ending his career yet, but the way his WWE career looks like it's ending, it's sad. Like, I think he deserves better. I'm pretty sure they could fix something up or something.
Well, I want him to be happy. He's apparently not happy here, so if that's the case, what's that thing they say about birds and letting them go and all that shit?
I'm pretty sure you said it word for word there.
Yeah, right. Well, the point is, though, whatever happens to Ray, I think we'll both still be fans. But this was a really good match. My favorite moment was the off-the-top rope faceplant. Do you remember? You know what I'm talking about, where they both come down on their faces off the top?
Yeah, it's when it looked like Chavo was gonna suplex him outside to the outside the ring, right?
Right. Yeah, that was a really good moment, and it was kind of the match turner to Chavo started kind of winning a little bit more again, but then it led to the end. So it was good. It was a good. It started the build towards the end of the match, and that was a great moment in it. Yeah. The next match was one that I was interested in because I have heard of Kenzo Suzuki, but I had never seen Kenzo Suzuki wrestle. I should point out, this is at a period of time where I had quit watching wrestling. I was really trying to focus on college and, trying not to watch television as much. And so I missed a lot of this period. And Billy Gunn is one of my favorite wrestlers. I have always enjoyed Billy Gunn's work. And it's one of those things that, I don't know. This matchup feels like it should be a good matchup because it's, that you have the guy who hates America. It's the Great American Bash. And then you have Billy Gunn, who's the ass man. But I found this match to be kind of boring. What'd you think?
See, I was just going to say something. This was during the time where you weren't watching wrestling.
Yeah.
Me, on the other hand, this is when I was watching all things SmackDown. I was glued to my TV every Friday, then Thursday night, or Thursday and then Friday night. So I during this time is when I was watching heavily. So I do remember Kenzo Suzuki, oddly enough. And he was just a victim of pretty much what WWE does to every Japan superstar. They just don't know really what to do with him.
Yeah.
And you're right, this match really was boring. And it sucks because I like you really like Billy Gunn. I love Mr. Ass. I love his intro music. I have it on my iPod, for Christ's sake. I love it. But that match just, there was nothing there for me. Like, even watching a wrestler as much as I like as Billy Gunn, there wasn't anything there for me. The funniest thing about this match was hearing Michael Cole and Taz argue about how to pronounce Kenzo Suzuki's partner's name. That was probably the best part of the match.
Which, by the way, is his wife. Is his real life wife.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, because they both still perform together in New Japan Pro Wrestling.
He still wrestles?
Yeah.
Wow.
He is still. He just formed. I forget the name of it. Like a couple of years ago, he formed a new stable, and they're still wrestling. I've seen some of his matches from New Japan, and you talked earlier about WWE kind of what'd you say, handcuffing Ray and Chavo. And I think this is a great example. Like, I've seen matches that this dude has done years later, and so I know he can still go, at this time. So I think that was WWE trying to tell him a certain way to wrestle and a certain way to do his thing. And I don't know. Whatever happened, I've seen much better matches from this guy, so I don't think this was Kenzo Suzuki's fault. I don't think it was Billy Gunn's fault. I think it was just bad booking.
Yeah, it's chalk this one up to WWE's fault.
Right. But yeah, Taz and Michael Cole trying to talk about the name, and I don't know, it's hilarious. I did love when they showed they showed back to the previous SmackDown, and they showed her blowing the salt in the ref's eyes and in the other wrestlers' eyes. Yeah,
that was good.
That was pretty good. So speaking of women interfering with things, the next match was Sable and Tori Wilson. And
that was the match of the night, and now we hear nothing to the contrary.
I don't know if I can agree with you 100% there, Ulysses. Here's the gist of it. I think they were like, we need a reason for two attractive women to fight in red, white, and blue at this pay-per-view. Okay, here's how we do it. So Tori Wilson gets the role to basically be the cover girl for the Great American Bash. She is actually on all the posters and does a great job. I think Tori Wilson is great to an extent, but I'm a Sable fan. I'm just going to be honest. I used to, my 16-year-old self still has a crush on Sable. However, so this brings up this match, and it also gives us a nice little segment with Sable getting out of the hot tub, and they knew what they were doing. Let's just put it that way. So, Ulysses, hater of all that is beautiful, tell me, are Tori and Sable attractive?
Sable is very much attractive, but just like how you were a Sable, your 16-year-old self was a Sable fan. At this moment, I was 11. 11, 12, and 13-year-old Sable, Ulysses was probably a bigger Tori Wilson fan than like anybody else on the main roster. Like, I probably liked her more than I liked Taker, Kurt Angle, and everyone else.
I find that odd, but also, I just want to clarify, are you saying that in 2004 you were 11?
Yes.
Alright, I'm going to shake my head and move on.
At 11 years old, I knew what I wanted.
Alright, so I thought they actually gave this match a little bit of time, like more time than I thought they were going to give it.
Yeah.
And I can't knock the finish of the match too much because it led to some future storylines between Sable and Tori. Like, they knew what they were doing. They were building up some stuff. There was a deal with a crooked ref. He was apparently involved in putting Sable over. So, all in all, I didn't think this match was horrible. It's definitely not the worst Divas match I've ever seen.
No, not even close. The funny thing was WWE trying to sell Sable as a heel, but the crowd was like, Sable's hot. Who cares if she's a heel? That was the greatest.
Yeah, they had a hard time pushing that. Because I remember, knowing people who were still fans at this time, and they would talk about that, like how, because this is not far removed from the infamous lesbian storyline, right?
The one with Tori Wilson and Dawn Marie?
Yeah, but I thought Sable was involved in that too.
I think that's later.
That's later. Okay.
Yeah.
Like I said, though, I know Sable's one of the heels in that storyline, and that's like when I think people kind of accepted her as a heel.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. We're getting a little off track here with too much Sable stuff. But if you want to watch the best of Sable, why is that not a DVD? I know they're not on great terms with her. But anyway, and she's off being married to Brock Lesnar. Exactly. Yeah. If you don't know, for the people listening, she's married to Brock Lesnar. And I think he made a good choice. Okay, so now we're up to Ulysses' favorite match of the evening.
Oh, God.
Mordecai versus Hardcore Holly.
The Pale Rider.
The Pale Rider. I'd like to first state that Hardcore Holly is not one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, but he has some of the best backstage stories. And for those who don't know, he's apparently stiff as hell.
He looks stiff.
He's stiff as hell, and if you've never seen the original Tough Enough runs that they did on like MTV,
he was
with him and Taz, I think it was.
Yeah.
Oh my
and Al
God.
Snow.
And Al Snow. Those are three guys that will. They do not take your shit. They do not care if you hurt. All right, so here's my problem with this match, right? And I'm just going. I want to get your opinion, but I have to say this first. Their match was not as good as the 45-second clip we got of them brawling backstage on the previous episode of SmackDown.
No, yeah, that probably was a lot more entertaining and probably a smarter way to go on this pay-per-view.
Right. I saw, for the story setup, basically, these two had not wrestled yet. Mordecai attacked Hardcore Holly backstage, and for whatever reason, they had started brawling. And I don't even think they even say what the reason was. Yeah,
I think it was just because I think at the moment of that storyline, I think it was they're trying to do something like Mordecai's trying to sacrifice somebody or something.
Yeah, I don't. He was talking about his first sacrifice, and I don't know. Whatever. Look, I don't dislike the idea. There are very few wrestling gimmicks that I think are just wretched, right? And Mordecai wasn't a horrible gimmick, but one, Kevin Thorne or whatever you want to call him, still looked a little green. There were still some moves I was like, that could have looked better. And then I don't know. His match was just boring. Like I think that maybe they should have done a little more with this. Like maybe had him actually drag Hardcore Holly off to the backstage or something after. I don't know. Plus his finisher is, it's basically the Razor's Edge, and it just doesn't look as good.
See, this is my biggest problem with the Mordecai gimmick. The way they try to portray him as like a mystical being or something of like more of a religious angle. Or like they try to make him like sound like if he's powered by some unholy force or whatever. My big issue is you already have someone on your roster with that similar gimmick. Hell, he's in the main event of this one. Sure, you already have the Undertaker.
He seems like a heel Undertaker because at this point, Undertaker's a face.
Yeah,
and so he just seems like a heel Undertaker.
And it's like unless you were building some kind of program where like it was going to be a collision course between Mordecai and Undertaker, which it never really seemed that they were even considering doing anything like that. I don't see the end result of this gimmick. Like, granted, like they struck gold with Undertaker because they found the guy who's willing to commit to that role. But this Mordecai gimmick, since the first day I watched it, I just thought, I've seen this before. I have the Undertaker. Why do I care about this guy?
Yeah. So here's my question of the episode. Each episode so far I've given you let's do some fantasy booking here, and mine for this time is, so WWE decides they want to bring Mordecai back because Kevin Thorne still wrestles off and on, right? Mm-hmm. Now they bring Mordecai back in. Who would you have him feud with on the current roster?
Easy. Bo Dallas. 100%.
That would be interesting. I don't actually know. I have to put some thought behind this.
No, see,
right?
Just see it like this. Mordecai comes in with his gimmicky thing about the god or whatever.
Yeah.
And then Bo Dallas being Bo Dallas. So next thing you know, Mordecai looks at him as like someone who's trying to like fringe on God's property, and a battle of epic proportions collide.
Okay, I had two picks here. My first one was Jack Swagger. Because basically he's down, he's failed America and stuff like this. So Jack Swagger turns to religion, as all people do when they're down, right? So Mordecai comes in professing to almost like be God's answer. And at first you're thinking, like, even Mordecai and Zeb culture would get into it, and you're thinking that Jack Swagger's going to turn on Zeb and team with Mordecai, and they're going to make tag team. But then at the last minute, Swagger realizes what's really up, and they start a big feud, okay? That's my first idea. Second idea, as soon as Dean Ambrose comes back, you put him up against him. And this is why. Because Dean Ambrose is pretty much crazy, right?
Yeah.
And so you have Mordecai come out, and then you have Dean Ambrose come in. It's like, look, dude, I got voices in my head for days. I think two of them say they're God. It's like, you're crazier than I am. And then they start a big feud. I think that would work. But of course, Dean Ambrose feuding with anybody is pretty much, at least going to get some of my interest.
Yes, I agree with that.
Okay, well, we're done with we're done with all of the mediocre matches. So we can move on to the good stuff. And the next bout is actually what my nomination for best match of the night.
Yeah, without a doubt.
So we have the champion, Eddie Guerrero, versus JBL. And this is, to me, I've gone back on the network, and friends have loaned me DVDs and, just different things. To me, this is when JBL was at his height. Like, I love the character Bradshaw, but this
JBL
just really
where it's at.
Yeah. And this match just kind of cements that for me. So let's start with the basics. There's a really awesome video package to build up what had happened so far. There's a lot, so I'm not going to go over all of it. But basically, it really cements the importance of this match, and what's happened beforehand, and why these two are just ready to destroy each other.
Yeah, and that video package showed the match from Judgment Day 2004 between those two, and to this day I cannot rewatch that match. That match was brutal.
Yeah, it looked brutal. I also just love Eddie's entrance. I love that both of the guys came out in cars, but I don't know, something about Eddie's entrance has always, amused me.
It's that machismo. It's that charisma.
Yeah. So, what did you think about the match overall?
The match overall was fantastic. I thought it was great. Watching these two do their thing, and the premise of this match was just great. The way they sold it, the ending I thought was fantastic. I remember watching it as a little kid and thinking, "Oh, that's horseshit," but going back, it was good. Like, it's a really good storytelling match. They really did a lot of good back and forth. Like, in a match like this, it's really easy to sell how a guy as small as Guerrero could whoop on a guy as big as JBL.
Right. Yeah.
So they everything was done perfectly. Like, JBL played his part perfectly. Guerrero did his part perfectly. Oh man, like I would love for more matches like this in like the current roster. It'd be good for like really tight storytelling.
I just realized we didn't actually say what type of match this was. This is a rope match.
Yeah, the Texas Bull Rope.
Bull rope match, yeah. So the idea is that you have to drag your opponent around to all four corners, and they have red lights and green lights. The green lights were representing JBL at the time, and the red lights were representing Eddie Guerrero. And every time you touch the corner, the lights would come on. Yeah. This is important for the end of the match, so I'm kind of shocked we didn't mention this until now. But it was a very, very physical match. JBL gets busted open at one point, and I'm pretty sure he got busted open the hard way.
Yeah. Like, Oh, it was bad. He didn't juice or bleed like Guerrero did in the previous pay-per-view, but
right. There was a good bit of blood, but I think Ulysses is right. I think if you really want to see a match that's just devastating, you may want to go watch the one right before this. However, this was a very fun, interesting match. I was hooked through the entire match. There was really no point where I was bored during this match.
Yeah, it was good. Like, again, I love this JBL gimmick. So like everything he was doing in this match was just funny to me.
Well, like there's a great part where Guerrero's about to win, and I love that JBL realizes. So he throws himself out of the ring. So of course, because it's a rope, there's no way he can get over there. And you see this look on Eddie where he's just like, really?
Oh, that was great.
There are some really good spots in this match, too, where JBL throws Eddie onto the table. Like, he throws him from the ring apron onto the table, which with the rope, making that even more dangerous. Then, I believe, like, about a minute after that, he actually puts him through the table.
Yeah.
It was a good match. This is one I recommend. If you... I know we have a lot of fans that either due to being so young or just not watching at the time or whatever, didn't get to see a lot of Eddie Guerrero's matches and maybe didn't get to see a lot of JBL's. And this is a good one that you should put on your list to go back and watch.
Yeah, like, I'm like, watching these matches were just, it's a good little reminder of just how good Eddie Guerrero was. And during this time, how awesome it was to see him in the main event scene and how well he carried himself in this main event scene.
Yeah. No, Eddie was a true talent, and it sucks that he went out as soon as he did. And, you know, I mean, he would have... I don't know how long he would have wrestled because I know he was in a lot of pain and stuff like that, but he would have had several more great matches, I'm sure. This match has a very interesting outcome, and the reason for that is that Kurt Angle, who was a heel at the time, was also the general manager, as we mentioned, and he came out and had to point out that JBL had technically touched the last turnbuckle because they did a great job of this. Their timing and stuff was spot on, and the replay action was great. But they thought that Eddie had won and retained the title, and JBL won it back. And I know after this, like, JBL goes on to feud with The Undertaker, so I don't know if Eddie ever got his rematch. I'm not sure.
No, I don't think he did.
Yeah. But it was an interesting outcome. It wasn't like oh man, that was bullshit. Like, it really was kind of a cool way to end the match.
Yeah, it was. And the one thing I'll say this is the one reason why I do love this match, like now hindsight being 2020, is it gave birth to one of my favorite heels that I've ever seen. Like, this was during the height of me really watching wrestling, and that JBL heel champion was just... Oh, it was great. He was so scummy. He'd always win in very disgusting manners, and he'd always manage to cheat his way out, and it was great. It was just fantastic.
And he also held that title. I think he still holds for holding that title.
The longest reigning champion, right? In SmackDown history.
Yeah. I think because I was thinking maybe somebody else, but no, I think he still holds that. Yeah, and I don't know. It was just an all-around really good match, and Eddie and JBL both played their parts perfectly.
Yeah,
I can't really. There's not usually when I see a match, even if it's a really good match, there's stuff I'm like, oh, I wish they had done this differently, or I would change this, or whatnot. But there wasn't a lot of that in this. I couldn't really think of much I would have changed.
No, not that I could think of. I just wish there would have been more matches like this.
Yeah. So here's another question: who do you think on the current roster needs a good Texas bull rope match?
Okay, I'm thinking. I want to see something similar like this: a really big guy versus a tiny guy. So I'm gonna go Big E Langston because he's always gonna be my pick. Because damn it, WWE, I want to see more Big E Langston. But I'm gonna go Big E Langston versus I can't think of a little guy. Hell, let's bring up someone from the NXT against Tyler Breeze. Mess up that face up a little.
Okay, that would be interesting. All right, so I had two ideas again with this. So my two is we have a current storyline between Rusev and Mark Henry, and I think a bull rope match would actually be entertaining between them. Yeah.
Damn it, you win.
Well, I know that's two big guys, but like they could do a lot with that, and I think it would give them both a moment to shine.
Yeah, that'd be great.
The other idea that I had was the Swagger Bo Dallas one, which actually goes into your idea of having a kind of bigger guy, because Swagger's a big dude.
Yeah, he's tall.
And Bo Dallas is not. But if we did the Swagger Bo Dallas one, I would see Bo Dallas doing the stuff like JBL, like throwing himself out of the ring just to keep Swagger from doing it. And I don't actually know how you would book the ending of that match, but I think it would be entertaining. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, it would be. Oh, that'd be great.
All right, so on to the main event of the night, and I love The Undertaker, but I don't know what happened here to this, and like I actually don't have a lot of notes because I spent most of the match looking at it confused. So let's explain a little bit here. First of all, I don't know how many times the late great Paul Bearer has been kidnapped in WWE storylines, but it's been a lot. Let's just be honest. It's been a lot.
The man knows how to sell a kidnapping story.
I know Edge kidnapped him at one point. I know Kane had him kidnapped at one point. There was at least one other I'm not remembering. But in this particular idea, Paul Heyman has instructed the Dudley Boys to go make an impact, which actually sounds like something Paul Heyman would say. And they decided to kidnap Paul Bearer. Okay, well this works. It leads to a good story. So now Paul Bearer is being put in this glass, they called it a coffin, but it's sarcophagus, crypt, whatever you want to call it. Which is basically just it's another way to say, hey, we built a glass box. Put a chair in there and put Paul Bearer on the chair. And there's a cement truck, which has been there for the whole pay-per-view, which I was really hoping one of the other matches would throw somebody into the cement truck. I don't know. I think it was during the Luther Reigns, Charlie Haas. So I was like, if they start brawling on the outside, they just throw each other into the cement truck. But anyway, so this is going to happen to Paul Bearer if The Undertaker doesn't basically lay down and let the Dudley Boys win. Which was kind of odd anyway, because it took the whole match for Paul Heyman to decide, okay, I'm tired of The Undertaker fighting back. Let me just throw this switch. I don't know. It was... What did you think? I feel like I don't have the words here.
I remember this match. I remember the storylines going into this match. Like this, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this was Undertaker when he started to return from his Dead Man Inc. gimmick to the Dead Man Undertaker that we know and love.
Yeah. This was at the end of the biker gimmick.
Yeah. I can't say a lot because I don't want to sound too negative, but there's not a lot of matches I could say this when it comes to The Undertaker, but this one was boring. Like
it was pretty boring. I think there was too much going on.
Yeah.
I think they were trying to focus on the Paul Bearer situation, and you had a 2-on-1 match, which really just wasn't... I like the Dudley Boys. I think they're good wrestlers. But whatever they were doing in there was just not entertaining. No. And even The Undertaker, like some of the moves he was doing, I was like, that was kind of cool, but now we're back here with the Paul Bearer thing, and I just don't care anymore. I don't know. It wasn't... this isn't like my vote for one of the worst matches ever, but as far as mediocre, boring matches, this one's pretty top.
Boring main event matches, without a doubt, it's up there.
And to kind of cap all this off, I didn't really understand the ending. I did. I got it, but I don't think they did a good job with it.
They didn't do a good job explaining it at the pay-per-view, but I remember the SmackDown following that he did explain himself.
Okay, good. See, I was going to ask you that, because I looked, and it basically was like, yeah, and after that, The Undertaker goes to feud with JBL, and then, I even checked like two different places, was like, Nah, he never really like gives like a great explanation, you know. And I like the idea in my mind was that Undertaker realizes, Paul, you're kind of a weakness. I'm going to go ahead and, for those of you who don't know, at the end of the match, Undertaker stops Paul Heyman from completely doing in Paul Bearer because the cement was up to pretty much his like top part of his chest at that point, and he goes and he grabs the mic, and he's after doing his little bow pose thing, whatever he does, he pretty much says, "Sorry, Paul," and then does it anyway, and he finishes filling the tomb. And the pay-per-view literally ends like as soon as the cement starts pouring in all the way. Did you notice that? Like the pay-per-view is like, and we're done.
Yeah, it's like, all right, we killed the man and we're good.
Yeah. Well, I think they were like, well, I don't know how they did the trick. So they might have been like, well, we need to make sure we have enough time to get him out of there. So let's make sure the pay-per-view ends pretty quick.
Yeah.
I don't know. Also, after the Eddie JBL match, I just think that should have gone on last. I know why the Undertaker match went on last. Undertaker's a bigger name, and you have this kind of cool set piece you're using. But I think if the pay-per-view ended with the JBL Eddie Guerrero match, I think I'd remember it a little bit more fondly. But the end of this just kind of leaves a bad taste in my mouth. I don't know. It's just overall. I'm not saying WWE ruins everything they take, but once again, I now want to go back and rewatch some of the other Bash at the Great American Bashes, and because I just think it'd be better.
No, because I believe the following year, Bash at the Beach in 2005, I believe that's when they start the Punjabi prison match.
We keep calling this Bash at the Beach, but it's Great American Bash.
It's all bad. Let's just can we call it that? It's all bad.
And I hope you're wrong, or else we may have to make the 2005 Great American Bash the next on our retro review.
Oh God, no.
Okay, so that's that, and I know this is a little bit of a shorter episode, but honestly, I would have to say go watch the Eddie JBL match, and maybe the Cena match at the beginning,
and the Nunzio segment.
Yes. Okay. So after the JBL Eddie match, the best part of this pay-per-view were all the hot tub segments, and especially the one with Nunzio talking about the size of his shoes and Dawn. Which, by the way, I always remember Dawn being attractive, but like I don't know. There's something about when she just shows up in the bikini. You're just like, do I know this girl? Who is she? Of course you do, but not used to seeing her bikini, I guess.
Yeah, I can see that.
Well, overall, though, those are the good points and a lot of bad points for this. If you disagree with us, or if you want to tell us it was something we missed or anything like that, please feel free to let us know. And on kind of a serious note for a second, I feel like we should point out this week has been kind of bad for wrestling fans in the sense that Jake the Snake Roberts was in the hospital. And everybody thought for a little while, it was good because he was out. He seemed like he was doing better, and he was being released from the hospital. But that was only to reveal that he has cancer. And so we want to wish Jake the best.
Yes.
Hope that he recovers, kicks cancer's ass.
The way he only knows how.
Exactly. But with that in mind. Maybe we'll review something with Jake in it, to kind of commemorate him a little bit. But if you have any suggestions of pay-per-views we should look at on the retro, please let us know. Or if you want to talk to us about what we've done in this episode, you can find me on Twitter at Stephen Wilds. Where can they find you, Ulysses?
On Twitter as well at WeCho. That's WII_CHO_.
Yeah, and Ulysses and I are always up for discussion, debate, whatever. So hit us up on the Twitter, and if nothing else, we'll see you next time.